As much as you want to call me a Trump cultist for objectively analyzing the situation, you can't take any criticism. That's what it is. For all of the talk I hear about Trump cult, and don't get me wrong, that does exist. But I also acknowledge that. It's you who can't acknowledge the reverse. We got to talk one more time about DeSantis' announcement last night and the fact that I fully understand there are people out there who are not happy with me because I was critical of what we saw. And, you know, frankly, most of those people are on Twitter, and we know how Twitter is with this stuff. So maybe I should not be taking it that seriously. But I do want to kind of clarify and explain my stance on Trump, on DeSantis, and on what we witnessed last night, and kind of the state of the discourse. Because I understand me going out there and saying, I didn't think that announcement was a good look, right? That's what I said. I just said, I don't think it was the best thing for DeSantis. You know, I understand a lot of people got mad. So let me say this to the DeSantis crowd that is not happy with the things I have said this week. To be clear, I am a political commentator. And as a political commentator, first and foremost, not an operative of the Trump campaign or the DeSantis campaign, I try my best to analyze this primary as objectively as possible, okay? And by objective, I don't mean that I don't insert my opinion. I just mean I try to, be fair and consistent about the things that I say, which means as a political commentator, I will praise both and criticize both Trump and DeSantis where I see fit, okay? And the thing I've heard so much in the past 48 hours is, you only criticize DeSantis. This is what the DeSantis crowd always says, because they cannot, the Twitter shills, they cannot conceptualize the idea of having things to say about both candidates. They constantly say, you're just a Trump cultist. You never criticize Trump, this and that. And it's like, again, just totally ignorant of reality, not familiar. I mean, you go back and look at my first few videos of the year. One of my first videos this year is me ripping into Donald Trump for endorsing Kevin McCarthy. I have another video saying I didn't like, the stuff he said at the start of the year on Truth Social. In fact, even if we want to walk the record back all the way back to when he was president, okay? When he was president, I was a much younger, like Gen Z influencer than I am now. But still, as president, we're talking about BLM right now. I was one of the people. Tucker Carlson was another. There were people in the right-wing space, but it was very far and few between. I was one of the only people stepping up and vocally criticizing Donald Trump for not doing enough about the Black Lives Matter riots, right? That one thing everyone likes to play hindsight backseat driver. See, Donald Trump didn't do enough. Well, ironically, I noticed this to be the case. Very often, these same influencers who now call me a Trump cultist and all this stuff and say, blah, blah, blah. They were the ones who were hardcore Trump cultists back in 2020 and refused to accept criticisms of the guy. And then suddenly now turn around and say, by criticizing Ron DeSantis in completely fair and, objective and unbiased ways, you're a Trump cultist. It is just absolutely bad faith. It's just devoid of reality. If you go back and check the record, I'm probably more critical of Donald Trump than some of the people who accuse me of being like bad faith on this, okay? But again, the reality of the situation is I do support Trump over DeSantis for certain reasons, and I try as a political commentator, again, to be fair and objective and, consistent about my criticisms of both figures, okay? But it's very interesting. It's very interesting because most Trump supporters out there had no problem when I criticized Trump for the right reasons, right? You go look at the comment section of my Kevin McCarthy videos. It's Vince, I agree. Vince, I agree. So true. I'm not happy with Trump. Yet you guys are the ones who always call our campaign the cultist, which is not to say that there's not cult-like behavior in the Trump campaign. I'm not saying that's not true at all. I'm just saying I so often notice this, okay? I will go out and criticize Trump for a lot of different stuff, including especially the people he surrounds himself with and endorses, which I still have criticisms of to this day, right? And Most Trump people will say, Vince, I agree, Vince, I agree. But when it's only when I do the same to Ron DeSantis and say, hey, you know, objectively, what we saw last night was not the best look. I just get the most unhinged, emotional attacks from the DeSantis crowd. And suddenly, that's all they see. Why do you only criticize DeSantis? Why do you only spend so much time criticizing DeSantis when, you know, that is just not absolutely the case at all? So with that said, I will reiterate one more time. In a serious, objective sense, and again, this does not mean I don't criticize Trump, but what we saw last night in terms of that Twitter space was not a good look for Ron DeSantis. Excuse me. Congested here, okay? Anyways, again, that was not a good look for Ron DeSantis. And I laid out the specific reasons why, okay? You didn't hear me just saying, oh, he's meatball Ron. I said the technical problems in the beginning were a serious blunder. It was not a good look. It was all people are going to make fun of. And on top of that, you can say, well, that's not his fault. Sure, but it was his choice to do the Twitter space to begin with. And I also thought even further, if you want to look, you know, put aside the technical issues, I just don't think the format, even without technical problems, of only announcing your presidential campaign in a audio-only Twitter space with no video at all, whereas the traditional, normal way to do that is in an in-person rally and kind of all that grandeur and stuff. I said even before the Twitter space happened, I did not think that was a good look. I did not think that was good optics, right? And, you know, you can add stuff to that on top, the fact that he was basically reading off a script for his opening statement when it was something that was supposed to be controversial. I also brought up he does not have the sort of charisma or magnetic personality of Trump. And so I said, objectively, for reasons I could logically lay out and defend, I didn't think it was the best optics visually as an event, right? Now, I did say, in fairness to Ron DeSantis, I also said this. I said that I did think his messaging, the actual things he was saying, I did not think it was bad at all. I said that his messaging was good. I said it was pretty solid. But what did I also say? I said that it was not revolutionary enough, right? And this was my analysis of it. He's running way too safe of a campaign rhetorically, right? He's just going out there and saying, you know, we're going to fight the woke, all good stuff. But when you're 30 points behind, and I said this last night, when you are not the front runner, when you're 30 points behind and kind of trying to overthrow a very powerful front runner, it's not enough to just kind of say, I'm a conservative, good old boy stuff and just decent, right? No, you have to be revolutionary, right? He has to come on and really like swing for the fences and say, Donald Trump failed you. I'm the true conservative. I'm the true conservative who goes after woke capital, all that stuff, really like stress that stuff. And even as our DeSantis panelist said last night, he just didn't really do that, right? He's running a very safe campaign in terms of messaging, trying to ignore Donald Trump and stuff. And that's just not going to work, right? Objectively, from a political standpoint, that is not going to work. And, you know, frankly, instead of getting mad at me for pointing these things out, again, as a political commentator, as someone who is analyzing the situation, DeSantis crowd, maybe you should actually be taking my advice. Because actually, I think the things I'm saying are genuinely good advice. And even our DeSantis panelist last night 100% agreed, right? He needs to be using more revolutionary messaging, right? He needs to really kind of drawing more of a wedge between himself and Trump and saying, Trump is the guy who failed you. I'm the true conservative, this and that. And, you know, the Twitter space is not a good look. He needs to be doing real in-person events, right? How about this, DeSantis people? How about instead of getting mad at me for analyzing it and actually saying, well, if I were DeSantis, this is what I would do. How about you actually take the advice? Huh? Because it would be good advice objectively for your campaign. You would do a lot better if you actually listen to the things I was just saying as analysis. Oh, but you can't, because as much as you want to call me a Trump cultist for objectively analyzing the situation and giving my fair and honest opinion, you can't take any criticism. That's what it is, okay? That's what it is. So many of you in the DeSantis camp cannot take criticism. That's what it's about. I can take criticism. I know DeSantis supporters, like the panelist that we bring on, right? Gen Z right-winger. He's cool. We get along. But for all of the talk I hear about Trump cult, and don't get me wrong, that does exist. But I also acknowledge that. It's you who can't acknowledge the reverse, okay? It is cult-like behavior, frankly, to look at what that was last night and not in any way be able to say, I don't know if that was the best look. He can still be your guy. I'm not saying that a shoddy start discredits him. If he's your candidate, he's your candidate. But don't get mad at me for objectively analyzing the situation as a commentator, okay? You should be getting mad at your guy. And also, you know what, on top of this, you can get mad at the Trump crowd or the commentary people, whatever, for just pointing out, hey, that was kind of a, what are they saying? Disaster, right? But, you know, hypothetically, your guy is supposed to ultimately take on Joe Biden. Do you understand that? Okay? Do you understand that? And what we saw last night, not only is it not going to beat Donald Trump, I'm not saying he can't fix the show, but what we saw last night, not only is that not going to beat Donald Trump, that is not going to beat Joe Biden. Okay? And guess what? You think the Trump people are nasty? You think the Trump people are piling on? Wait until Ron DeSantis actually is the target of liberal news media and of Joe Biden and of the Democrats. Okay? You think the Trump people are bad? See what happens there. So you better get used to either like understanding, hey, we need to kind of get our act together here as a campaign, or do it or something, okay? But getting mad at me on Twitter for being a very actually objective analyst about the situation is not the answer. Hey guys, Vince Dow here. Hope you enjoyed that clip from the Vince Dow Show. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. And be sure to check out the Vince Dow Show live every weeknight here on this channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is a great show. Many are saying this. So leave a like, check out our other clips, and be sure to check out the show. Yeah. God bless.